What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Two Wheeled Rider YouTube channel. My name is Mario Orsini, and as many of you know, just a little over a month ago, or right about a month ago, I completed a motorcycle trip over in Europe. I told you to send me in questions. You guys have done that, so tonight I'm going to answer them. Before we get started tonight, quick shout out to Marshall3498 for sending both Kristen and I a couple of these really cool t-shirts. Greatly appreciate it. Thanks, man. Gonna link you down in the description below. Typically, I showcase this stuff in Mail Time Monday videos, but I know these videos are gonna get a lot more traction, so I figured that'd help you out a little bit more. And just so you guys know, I'm actually wearing the one that you sent, that Marshall sent Kristen, which is a medium. I typically wear a large. You sent me an extra large. Not complaining. Hopefully it shrinks up a little bit. But for future reference, if anybody's going to send me a shirt, large. I don't know how big I look on camera, but I'm only about 170, 175 pounds. So I digress. Let's move on to the questions. So Evan Moore sent in, I didn't limit the number of questions, and I'll answer all of them. He's definitely going to get his money's worth, so let's just go down the list. What was my most unexpected part of the trip? That's easy. How small Europe is. And it's not being disparaging or anything towards Europe, but in one afternoon, we rode through like 4 countries. And the countries over there are much, much smaller than the United States is. And keep in mind, I'm talking about the area I rode in. But it just surprised me. I was able to ride through Germany, Belgium, Luxembourg, and France on one day. It's kind of like going through PA, Maryland, West Virginia, and Virginia here. So that was kind of unexpected. What was the best part of the trip? I'd get in trouble if I didn't say traveling with my wife was the best part of the trip. So that goes without saying. But honestly, aside from that, probably the best part of the trip was that I got to go meet up with Alan and his family. Alan came over here and rode with me in West Virginia back in June of 2018. I hadn't seen him since then. Obviously, we kept in contact, but it was awesome hopping off the plane, seeing Alan, which you guys saw in that trailer. And if you haven't watched it, I'm going to link it up here. So, no, that was probably my favorite part. My least favorite part? That's a good question. The lack of ice. Ice is really hard to find over there when you're out places, and I like cold drinks. I'm not one that likes drinks at room temperature, and I don't like hot drinks either. That's why I normally drink my bourbon on the rocks. That's probably my least favorite part. Next year's big trip. That's a really good one because, obviously in 2017, I rode out to the West Coast. 2018 was Alaska. 2019 was Europe. How do you top those things? All I can tell you right now is we're in the planning phases of a couple of trips. One of them's pretty much definite. The other one is a little bit pie in the sky. We'll see how that works out. Spoiler alert, 2021, probably going to end up back in Europe, but another part, you're going to have to wait and find out. Christoph, I'm going to butcher your last name, but I'm putting these questions up on the screen anyway. How did you enjoy lane splitting? Loved it. We got to do that in quite a few places. The only time I've got to do that here in the U.S., though, since I've been out west, some states have changed the laws, was California. Really enjoyed it out there. It was a little bit easier in Europe. They gave you a little bit more room. You'll see that in the video series when it comes out this fall, and I talk about it a little bit more in depth, but lane splitting should be legal everywhere as far as I'm concerned. Chris Rubico asked, are European drivers less aggressive or better than Americans? Yeah. The aggressive part, I'm not real sure. Are they better drivers than Americans? In areas, yes, they are. And what I mean by that is both in areas of how they drive and then areas of actually where they're located. Here in the U.S., I've traveled in a bunch of different places, and normally if you're in rural areas, drivers are usually pretty good. They'll wave you on past if they're going a little bit slower on country roads, stuff like that. So I've never really had any issues. When you get into big cities is where you see more aggression. And obviously I try to avoid those both here in the U.S. and we try to avoid them in Europe. I didn't really notice any aggression in Europe. What I noticed was less distracted driving. I also noticed more people driving manual transmission vehicles. I don't know if that has anything to do with it or not. And I noticed less people on cell phones and just more aware of motorcyclists. So, yeah, I guess. All right, next up, Mark and Christy Anderson asked, any close calls with traffic, near misses or crashes? And no, no, and no. Drop bike while stationary. I don't have any wood around here to knock on, but if I did, no and never. So anyway, there you go. Jerry Rowan asked, did you go to any distilleries, and if so, which ones? Either fortunately or unfortunately, however you want to look at it, no. I'm a bourbon guy, so you know what the saying is. Bourbon can be made anywhere in the U.S., but the best bourbon's made in Kentucky. I'm going to stick by that. Shane Richard Lloyd asked, where would you visit again and spend more time? Of the places I went, or at least the areas, countries I went to, I'd probably choose Austria. We did fly into England. We did drive up to the Netherlands, but I didn't get to ride in any of those places. So I'm going to say Austria. I got to go out one night by myself on a Starbucks mug run, and I got to see some pretty cool places that weren't really planned on the trip, and I'd like to get back to those areas. I would like to go back to Europe again and ride some different areas. You know, my last name's Orsini, if that gives you a hint. But yeah, of the places I went, Austria. Jeffrey Nolan asked, how are the road conditions compared to the U.S.? Any unusual highway rules for motorcycles like lane splitting? We already discussed lane splitting. Road conditions compared to the U.S. comparable to mid-Atlantic and middle of the U.S. areas, maybe a little bit further south. They were in really good condition. When you start to get further up into the U.S., further up north, that's when roads are typically in a little bit a little bit worse condition because, you know, the constant freezing and thawing and everything in the wintertime. The areas I was riding in, everything was pretty well maintained. Road signs were a little bit different than what I'm used to, and we were allowed to lane split on the highway and in other areas. We did have, you know, motorcycles are afforded a few options that cars aren't while we're driving. But there were some areas on the Autobahn where there was no speed limit, so that was pretty cool. So anyway, hopefully that answered your question. Dan LeMay asked, favorite meal? I'd probably get in a lot of trouble if I didn't, and I can't really pick a specific one. But I would definitely get in trouble if I named anything we ate out somewhere because Alan and his wife were so gracious in cooking us meals while we were staying at their place, and Bernadette is an excellent cook. Alan's also very great on the grill, so definitely something we had at their house. We had so much good stuff there, it'd be tough to pick out just one. Triumph Rider, also known as Mark, asked, and this is going back to the video where I asked for questions, where was that outro photo taken? I'll flash it up on the screen. That was in Munster, France. I have no idea if I could fly my drone there, but I really wanted that photo and video footage, so I did. Luke Ross asked, and you guys may remember Luke Ross. He's been in some videos in the past, friend of mine. He took over the channel, I don't know, a month or two ago. How many alcoholic beverages did you consume on the trip? Probably not as many as you think. Michael Czar asked, did you have fun and would you do it again? Yes, I had an excellent time. Kristen had an excellent time. Alan and Nikki had a great time while we were out on our ride. Would I do it again? I think I kind of spoiled that earlier, but yes, I will do it again. David Walls asked, any surprise, regulatory, or pain in the butt things I had to deal with? No, actually it was, don't really have anything to complain about. Customs was fine getting through, going from country to country over there. And I'll touch on this more in the next video. I'm gonna do a 4 or 5 video debrief series. Didn't have to show a passport or anything. It was like going state to state over here. So no, it was easy enough. Last set of questions comes in from Lowrider JW. Could you lane split? Yes. It's a popular question. This is a really good question. Is motorcycle culture, did it seem like it was different than it is in the States? And if so, how? It did. First off, I saw way more motorcycles over there when we were out riding than I typically see here in the United States. And one of the first times we were out riding was really on a weekend. And, you know, we see a lot of bikes out here when the weather's nice on the weekend, but you don't see many during the week. And that's where it kind of changed. I saw way more during the weekdays out riding than I would typically see here in the U.S. It also seemed like drivers were more on the lookout for motorcycles. We weren't kind of looked at as outcasts. like we can be here in the U.S. I didn't get any stupid questions about the bike. So I'd say culture is a little bit different. You know, we still have the motorcycle wave on the other side of the Atlantic, just like we do here. Harley riders sometimes still don't wave to us, just like they don't here. But no, they seem more accepting of motorcycles over there. Yeah, I mean, it's a great place to go ride. So, did you feel more or less safe on the roads in Europe than the U.S., and if so, how? That kind of goes back to the question Chris asked earlier about the aggressiveness of drivers. And I'll say this to less safe, more safe. I don't want to say I felt any more safe on the road. I did feel like people were less distracted, paying better attention, and more aware of the motorcycles and other cars around them. But I kind of feel that way here in the U.S. too, at least in more rural areas. You have to remember, a lot of my trips, I go out west, so I'm going through areas where there's not a lot of traffic. And typically when I go out riding, I go riding on motorcycle-friendly roads where there's not a lot of traffic. There's not a lot of congestion. But where it kind of changes is when we do get into that congestion. I probably did feel a little bit safer riding in Europe because they're more aware of what's around them and they're paying attention, and they go ahead and move off to the side, be that to make an emergency lane for ambulances or, you know, give motorcycles a free pass on up to the front of the line. Where here in the U.S., if we were in a major city or in a congested area and you were to try to ride down the shoulder, ride down the middle, that's just not going to happen. So yeah, a little bit in certain situations I did feel more safe. Overall, not really. It was about the same. So anyway, those are the questions you guys sent in to me. Like I said, this is going to be the first part of a, I don't know, 4 or 5 video debrief series. And then eventually we'll get into the actual travel series. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed tonight's video. If you did, please give it a big thumbs up. If you're not a subscriber, consider hitting that subscribe button, because if you like motorcycles, well, this is the place to be. If you didn't get a question in, but you still have a question, drop it down in the comment section below. I'll do my best to try to get down there and answer it. And as always, I'll talk to you again soon.